Well, happy new year 2023. Welcome to the season 2 premiere of the Tossing Salad podcast. I am Brian Samatros, your host. I hope everybody had a great end to the year 2022 and you have a bunch of great plans for 2023. I know I'm looking forward to another year, another season of doing more podcasting, and I really think at this point I found something that it's kind of rekindled my passion for doing something. And I realize the connection that I have with talking to people on a one-on-one basis, this is what I want to do. It's a lot of fun. Now today's guest that I'm talking to is Lulu from Lulu's_Homestead on Instagram. She's got a TikTok account. She doesn't really use it. It's Lulu's_Homestead. Don't go to Lulu's Homestead because that's somebody else. This is another one of the names to where I'm just like, it's got to get the underscore on it. So Lulu's_Homestead. And Lulu and we've been following each other for a few years, but as we say in the podcast here, we don't converse a lot. It's just one of those things to where we've connected for a while. There's a sense of humor that I think both of us kind of understand, but we haven't had a chance to really dig deep and have like a really long conversation. So this one, we sat down. It was over an hour long. And you guys will see. We talk about homesteading, what the hell that is compared to like farming and gardening. At this point, I still don't think I know what the difference is. But we talk about that. We talk about foot fetish. I figured I'd throw that in at the beginning here. It'll catch people that are stumbling on the podcast. They're going to hear, foot fetish. I want to listen to this podcast. We do talk about it. It's not that big, but we talk about it. And we talk a little bit about social media in general, but it's a great conversation with somebody. I think you guys are going to really love it and enjoy.
Yeah, I've been watching the podcast. I've watched most of them, so I listen and watch. Depends. Like I'll watch half of them and then I'll be like, well, I'm going to work, so then I'll listen to the other half. But
that's the great thing I think about podcasts is that you can kind of take it with you or you fit it into whatever it is that you're kind of doing. Like for me, podcasts, I listen to mine in the middle of the night because I can't sleep, or when I wake up, I can't get back to bed. So I'll load up like 10 or 15 podcasts and I'll just listen to them all night. And it kind of detaches me from the real world, and I'm able to relax and sleep. They have to be somewhat interesting, right? Mm-hmm. To kind of get me just to listen, but they can't be super like engaging with my brain, or else I'll stay awake.
Yeah, you're kind of in between. I listen to podcasts all the time while I work out, while I am outside, while I'm on my way to work. I download podcasts and I listen because I work 30 minutes away or 35 minutes away, so I can listen to a whole podcast, half there, half back usually. But I'm always listening to podcasts.
What are the ones that you genre-wise, like, are you listening to gardening
Comedy.
ones, or are you listening all over the place?
Comedy mainly. I follow a lot of comedians. I'm into I like to laugh, and they have dark humor, and that's where
Give
I'm
me
at.
like three of them that you follow or that you listen to.
Annie Letterman, she has a couple of them. Mark Norman, I love him. He does a couple of them with different people. Ari Shafir. There's a bunch of different comedians, but they all intertwine, and I kind of just Bert Kreischer, him and Tom, they have 2 podcasts as well.
He's the one with the beard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not a super long beard, but he's bearded.
Bert Kreischer, he's always shirtless. He's a pretty famous comedian. Yeah, he's so funny. So I just listen to a lot because they just keep you laughing throughout the day. I listen to some that are more like interesting, that you're like learning stuff, but for the most part, I listen to comedy podcasts.
I do the same on YouTube. All of them, like you said, they kind of intertwine together and they go on each other's podcasts or whatever. Yeah. And I guess I'm trying to copy what they're doing in a sense that they're doing a podcast, but they're also, because they video, you're able to see a lot of the clips on YouTube or social media to where with different sound bites you can consume within, they'll upload a 3-4 minute clip, 60-second
Yeah.
clip that's super funny, but it's from their 1-2 hour podcast
Yeah.
episode.
And I'm always like, oh, I missed that one. And then I'll go and make sure I find it if there's ones that I don't watch every week. And
Right.
it helps because you're just like, wait, what were they talking about? And
I love it. And I think it's a great way for these guys to get their names out there, to get their content out there. A lot of them I would not know about other than them coming together to do these podcasts and then have them recorded on video. And it's opened me up to so many different smaller names of comedians that I would never have come across, but I've seen elsewhere to where I'm like, I've seen this guy before and he's hilarious, or I've seen her before and she's like, I love Natasha Leggero. I just came across her just from one of these podcasts on YouTube, and then that opened me up to like Tiger Belly and
I listened to Tiger Belly with Bobby and his now ex-girlfriend. She has the
Kalila?
podcast with Annie. Yeah, she has a podcast with Annie Letterman, who I like. So I listen to theirs every week, and yeah, they're all related in that world. So
and they get together, they do this for each other, and they're all growing together, which I think is great. It's something kind of similar that I'd love to see within the gardening community. And I know some people are scratching their heads. They're like, yeah, but that's stand-up comedians and you're talking gardening. But I think that kind of formula could work with certain people within gardening because
all communities. It's just a different community. That's a comedy community. This is a garden community. It's just, yeah. And then you find new people through podcasts.
And my thing, I've always said, I will always kind of gravitate, not necessarily because it's within gardening or whatever else it is that I'm into, like DIY or cooking or history type stuff. I gravitate towards people within each one of those slivers, a sense of humor. There's a specific sense of humor that I attach to, and I'm like, that's my person.
Yeah.
And whatever it is that they're into is what I'm like, okay, great. You've got me hooked.
Humor is medicine. Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
That's why I listen to comedy every day.
So,
I have to laugh.
Well, it just takes us out of some of the things in the real world that we're all stressed out over. And there's so many negative things that are out there that you see all the time. And no wonder it just seems like everybody's so worked up because all they see, they're in these bubbles of negativity and just
well,
people
that's
going after
how,
each other. And it stresses me out.
That's how I got started my garden Instagram, was because I got off Facebook because it just got so bad. Everybody's always fighting. And then even my personal Instagram, I go on there a little bit. I share like vacations and stuff. But even that, it's the same thing. It's just people fighting. So then when I started my garden Instagram, I just decided to follow gardeners and farmers. And you were actually one of the first people I started following on my new account. I don't know if you know that.
Real? Okay. No, well, you're talking the account after the one that got hacked, right?
The very first garden account, Growing with Lulu, you were one of the first people like that I didn't know that I started following. You came right up because I was looking for garden Instagrams. So I was like, I just want to follow gardeners and farmers because that's all this is going to be. And you were one of the first people, no idea who you were. I was just like, I'm just going to start following gardeners. And you were one of the first people that I talked to on my old, but it was my new at time Instagram.
Okay.
And it was about composting or something.
Well, it probably was. I mean, that's been one of the themes I've carried along with everything for the last 8-9 years within the social media gardening world, is I'm a big composter. But so take me through the roadmap then of your social media accounts. You started with a personal Facebook account, and then you got tired of it, like you were talking about. And
then I had my personal Instagram for years, but I would just post just random stuff. I've had that since, I don't know how long, years, 2015, no, way before that even. but I hardly used it, and then I would use it, but it was nothing like, I don't know, it was just there for personal stuff.
And did you find because that's people that you followed and they followed you because you had to follow them?
It was just friends and family pretty much, and then some strangers
That you felt
on
like you
there.
had to. I think that's
Yeah.
the worst way to curate a social media account is to follow friends and family. We can get into that, and
Most of them
that
are
could be a
muted.
podcast. Yeah. So you go from, okay, so you had the personal account, and then at some point you're like, you know what, I'm going to start, like you said, the garden and kind of farming, the garden and farming side of things, to basically narrow it down to that. And that was the very first one that ended up getting hacked.
It didn't get hacked. So what happened is when I made that account, I didn't double check. I put in my email wrong. So then when I logged me out one random day, I posted a pepper picture. I was not in the same town I'm usually in, so Instagram just thought that somebody else posted it. So as a safety thing, they log you out. Well, when I went to go log back in, apparently I must have put my email in wrong when I first made the account, and I couldn't get back in. They had me send a picture of me holding like a certain number to Instagram. They still didn't believe it was me, and so I had to make a whole new Instagram. So it was my own fault. I didn't get hacked.
Oh, well, see, I thought you had gotten hacked, and I remember when all of this happened, because you kind of disappeared for a little bit, and then I remembered another account popping up, and I got a direct message that, hey, this is Lulu, my other account, and I think at the time you thought you got hacked. Something happened, and I was like, well, I'm not sure if this is you or not.
Yeah, everybody kept saying that, because the first thing I did was follow like you, Kate, Amanda, like people I had on my other ones. So I was like, at least I know I can find people through you guys, because you guys, everybody's friends with everybody.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just found you guys, and I just started adding you, and almost all of you were like, is this you? Is this you? So finally I did a story, and I was like, it's me. I was like, this isn't a fake account. My other one, I couldn't get back. Yeah, it disappeared for a while because I tried getting it back, and it never happened.
What would you suggest to people that end up, they can't get into their accounts? What was the process, and what would you recommend people the process to be to get into their Instagram
like
accounts?
Some people are so like attached to their account. I'm not that way. I'm more like, I'd say attached to like you guys. Like I just have to have my 10 people that I communicate with. That, I mean, you kind of disappeared lately, but I communicate with you guys, and to me, I was just like, it was gone. I didn't even stress about it that much. My game plan was, I mean, make sure your email's in right, make sure you know your passwords. I don't know a lot of that stuff, but my thing was, I didn't even sweat about it. I was just like, make a new one and find my people again, and then just keep going, and that's what I did, and I just didn't even stress about it. I was just like, I know how to find you guys. Once I find one of you guys, I can find the rest. Everyone's friends with everybody, and I will find you guys.
Like
all
dominoes.
the other people I don't even talk to.
Yeah, it's like dominoes. Once you find the one or two, or like you said, 10 people that you really know or you interact with, you can go back and recreate your following list. And I'm kind of like you also, in that I'm not attached to my accounts to where if I lost it, I would be devastated. And I know there's a lot of people that would be, because that's like, they've built up their following account, they've got a big account or whatever, and they don't want to lose everything. For me, I look at it as a chance to kind of start over, like a fresh room, go in and repaint everything, move the furniture around. My original gardening account for the Garden Voyeur, I ended up shutting that one down, and I moved to starting a new one, which I since picked it back up for the podcast. But it doesn't bother me to lose my account. I don't want it hacked, because I don't want other people to be taken advantage of.
Right.
You know, if somebody were to, get in there and start messaging and asking for money, or God knows what else they would end up doing. No,
for sure. Yeah, I try, and that's the other reason I don't try to get so attached to, and I don't look at followers, I don't look at likes, I don't look at any of that stuff. I just kind of care about the interactions I have with people. And because if it's gone, I'm just like, make a new one. I have these relationships now with people all over the world now, but I can find them. Just make a new one, and I can find everybody, and that's kind of what I focus on. And for the most part, I have my pictures saved. I do care about that personally because I like to look back each year. That's the only bummer is I kind of use it. It's almost like a journal in a way because each year you get to see, especially in northern Michigan, the snow, the last frost, like how each year goes, and I like that. That's kind of a bummer because I lost that of like a year and a half. So I can't go back and look. But other than that, I mean, it's not that big a deal.
I think that's a great point in a sense that for people that get caught up a little bit too much in how many likes and followers that they have, in using something like Instagram as a journal, a developing journal to where, especially for gardening, which is the community that we're in or that we interact in, you can kind of go back and see, like you said, when did I plant? When did I get my seeds out for lettuce last spring after the snow? And then you can kind of fine tune things if you have that account up for several years. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at it to where it gets you thinking about social media in a different way and functional for you, as opposed to being obsessed about, oh my God, I've only got, 80 followers and this only has like 10 likes. Nobody likes the stuff that I have. Turn it around and say, well, you're using this as a journal. Yeah. So
everything I do is for myself. Like I do everything because I enjoy it, and I think that helps not get caught up because I watch a lot of people get caught up on like the likes, the follows, and I'm like, I don't even know. I don't pay attention to that at all, really. I do notice when things like blow up, like I had a horrible video go viral that I was like, this was supposed to be for just the 10 people I talked to, not 2 million people. And it was such a bad video of my Brussels sprouts, which I reposted today because I'm like, why did this go viral? So I noticed that, but for the most part,
Isn't that funny though, how you almost can't tell? A lot of us we don't know the formula of what takes off. And I think it's because we're dealing with this mysterious algorithm that somehow determines that this piece of content that Lulu made is going to go and be shown to thousands and thousands of people. And then the one thing that you may do a lot of work on and you do some research on, and it took you like 3 hours to do and edit, and like 5 people will see it.
Right. Well, so I don't do any of that either. If you look at most of my stuff, it's very like, I don't put that much time or thought into my social media at all. I do it very, I would say organically. Like I'm just like, I'll take a bunch of pictures if I'm in the garden, if I remember my phone. If there's like reels and stuff that other people are doing, I'll just be like, if I have time on a day off, I'll be like, oh, I'll go do that. And I'll just run outside and I'll just do it right then and there, put it together, and I post it. I put no thought into anything. I think it's just fun. It's just like, I'm not like, oh, I need to keep up with things. Because to me, if I do that, I will go down the rabbit hole of being like too addicted to my phone. I mean, I'm an addict through and through. I'll get addicted to social media so fast. Like, I have to be careful with that. So I'm very mindful.
That's the one thing that I have to keep reminding myself. And usually I will say I do a pretty good job of making sure that everything that I do, whether it's on my Instagram or TikTok or even on the podcast, it's all because I think it's fun and funny.
Yeah.
But I will have weak moments over time to where I get caught up in this obviously didn't resonate with people. Maybe it's because it's not good, so I'm not going to do that again. But that's the wrong way to look at it, because if whatever it is I'm doing, if I'm enjoying it, just keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that's what people resonate with. When I see an Instagram, and this is just me personally, when I see a Instagram that's picture perfect, my brain goes boring. But if I see somebody that's just like messing up and being silly and whatever, then I'm following that person because they're going to show me the good sides and the bad sides. They're going to show me everything. And that's what I'm here for. But you go on some of these grams and they're just like, every picture's so perfect. I'm like, I don't know. My brain literally is like boring. Like, I can't relate. I'm not perfect in any way. So my brain's like, I'm not going to relate to this. I need all over the place.
I'm kind of I'm very much the same way in the content that I am, that I lean in towards and that I end up consuming are very much not the perfectly curated videos that are just done like overly well. And nothing
Yeah.
against that type of content. It's just not what I'm on Instagram or social media for. I'm in it to
Same.
interact with a group of people, to be kind of silly sometimes. If we can help each other out, that's great, as far as maybe tips or something, but just to
I
have
learned
some fun throughout my
so
day.
Yeah, I learned so much. So I started my Instagram. So it was funny because it's actually during the pandemic, which a lot of people started theirs. But mine was, so I was working from home for years. I grew medical marijuana, so I worked for myself for years. So I was home all the time, and I was a year sober, and I kind of lost a lot of friends. My life had changed a lot within that year. So I decided I'd been gardening before that for a few years. Not the greatest. I was kind of doing the party life. And then when I got sober, I got really into gardening, and then I wanted to share it somewhere. And the year before, I was taking so many pictures and videos and not really doing much with them that I was like, I'll make a specific Instagram. And then I found the community, and it actually helped me a lot because I found new friends, social media friends, but it was nice to like talk to people about like-minded things, and that's kind of how I ended up there. And yeah,
So
so it was like,
you dropped on me there 3 or 4 different things that again could possibly be a podcast episode in and of itself for like an hour or so. I, the one thing I do want to kind of touch on real quick is going back to starting this gardening account of yours, and then you just now mentioned going through your sobriety. As far as, were you using the gardening account to kind of deal with that, or what, were you
I,
using the gardening account because you love gardening?
so
Because
I
a lot
love,
of us start gardening for other reasons other than gardening. My gardening has turned
yeah,
out to be to work on certain things for me, not so much growing the tomato, but it's working on some other things. And a lot of other gardeners are like that.
yeah. So I started gardening before the account. I was already gardening, and then the year before that is when I was sober, and I started getting more into gardening because it was kind of my new therapy. It was like my new, even though I've done it the years before, the first year being sober, I really got into it. It was something, it's your therapy. And then I created the garden account more for the community because that's what I felt like I was missing, especially, the pandemic. Also being sober, I feel like my world got smaller and smaller because of those two things. So the garden Instagram was nice.
Was your world getting smaller and smaller because that's what you had to do to get sober? Or
Kind of. It just
were you
naturally
moving
happens,
out the old people because you had to get out of the people that were around you into something else? I'm curious.
but kind of both. You naturally just slowly lose people when you stop drinking and stop doing drugs. Like you're just not hanging out with the same people.
You change, yeah.
So yeah, so naturally you just like lose some friends. And you're not going out anymore, so you're kind of it just naturally happens. And then yeah, I started wanting to find like-minded people and doing stuff other than just partying all the time. And I had to I was finding a new way of life, I guess.
Sure. And it's just
So
like you said, it's a way of, when you start to change your lifestyle, your friends are naturally, at least most of them, I think that's going to change up also.
yeah, The good ones
Right.
stick around for sure. I still got some good ones. But yeah, for the most part, the ones that are just, they fade away.
But not in any kind of like big blow up fights or anything. Just naturally, just
No.
because you're not partying
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. And luckily a lot of them got sober too. So, um, yeah.
Did any of them started gardening accounts or anything? Or
Nope. Working out mainly, just doing other things, definitely bettering their lives.
that's a yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
another way to work on some things is to physically focus in on working out, gardening,
Yeah.
whole lot of other stuff that you can end up doing. So I've been following this transition of yours lately. You've moved from one area to now you're on
Yeah.
this mega property that I'm just kind of curious what's going on because it seems like you're almost living a life that a lot of us gardeners kind of dream about or like they want to be kind of off grid somewhere living this homestead life, which I'm not even sure what homestead means. So if you
Me
understand what
neither.
that is, explain that to me. But what is it that you're doing now? What is it that you're doing now that because you got it's like DIY stuff. You guys are like repairing this
Yeah.
house and doing all kinds of stuff that way. And then I see you gardening, and then I see animals everywhere.
So, yeah, I know somebody mentioned, I think it was Brianna, she's like something about the homesteading. So I changed this Instagram name to Lulu's Homestead because my last account was Growing with Lulu, which I loved that name because I felt like I was growing as a person, I was growing food, I was growing a new life.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fitting. But after I left that name, I was like, well, I need to find a new name because, for one, I didn't want people to mix up the two accounts, so I didn't want them to be too similar. And then I knew we were buying this house. It's over 100-year-old house. It was they couldn't sell it to the bank. This house was rough. So I was like, I need a name that's going to kind of be like what is next. And since we were redoing this house and I knew I was going to show the house a little bit, the actual homestead, that's kind of how I
Right.
came up with the homestead, Lulu's Homestead, is because it's not just the gardening and the land and the animals eventually. Well, I have some animals, but more it was also the home. So I felt like the name was kind of fitting in that way because I'm actually redoing a home
Right.
and everything else.
Is there an actual definition for a homesteader versus a gardener versus a rancher, do you think?
I think a rancher. When I think of a rancher, I think of like I don't know. Is that like Minnesota?
I don't,
What's
I'm in Missouri. I have no
Yellowstone? People
idea.
always talk about Yellowstone. Like out here where I live, it's northern Michigan. It's farms here. Like I don't know what a homestead is. It's
Yeah, so
just
why
like
aren't you
being
a
off
farmer?
the grid. Yeah. Well, people will say they're off the grid, but then they're on social media, and I'm like, that's part of the grid. So
Sure.
I think people use words loosely. I know I kind of did when I thought of a homestead. I was like I said, I was kind of thinking of I'm literally redoing my home, and yes, I also garden, and I have animals, and so I kind of just lumped it all together.
Do you find yourself on social media now with your account? Are you part of a homestead circle or are you still kind of garden circle or like what
Gardening.
is
My circle hasn't changed. It's still the garden community. So the homestead thing, I remember like Kate was doing those reviews, and I think I missed part of it because I don't know all that was going on. So when people were
you're
like,
talking
"Oh,
the
homesteading,"
you're talking the
the
homestead
bundle,
bundle that Kate was
yeah,
reviewing. The Bloomin' Truth, Kate was reviewing a homestead package that was going bananas over Instagram where it seemed like there were hundreds of people that were selling this digital package that was worth $4,000 to $5,000, but if you bought it that week, it was worth $99, and it was all
yeah.
different types of things. That is what you're referring to.
Yeah, so I caught parts of it just because of Kate. I did see, like, I did get some, like, weird advertising. I don't think I was on, because I go up and down on social media, so I don't think I was on it. I missed part of it. So it's funny because that came out, and then my Instagram name is Lulu's Homestead, and I was like, I don't know enough about Homestead. My name for Instagram is just kind of random. I was just like, oh, I'm building a homestead. Like, I'm just going to do that name, not thinking about the whole homestead, any of that. So
I think within any kind of genre that we have online, you have different layers and different, uh, not
egos.
not yeah, I mean, it's just, there's hardcore homesteaders that are out there. There's
Yeah,
hardcore gardeners or whatever.
everything. Hmm.
Everything, right. And I was just kind of curious now that, you go from Lulu, our gardening friend, to now you're on the side of the homesteaders. Now she's a homesteader and we've lost her
Yeah.
if we're picking sides. But it just sounds like you just
I
arbitrarily
kept
kind
the
of
same
picked it.
group. Yep.
You, so most of the people that you interact with are still kind of just gardening people.
They're all gardeners. Yeah. Maybe I follow people that have, like you said, I honestly don't know the difference between a homesteader, a farmer, I honestly don't know. I'm like, as long as you're, and what all I follow is anybody that is, if you're growing a tomato plant on your balcony, I'm following you. As long
Yeah.
as, like, I just want your main feed to be either gardening, animals, something I can learn from, because that's kind of why I like Instagram. Is I gardened for so many years and I learned very little. The year I got Instagram, the gardening account, I learned so much. I mean, it was crazy. Just little things that I'm like, I never even thought of. So that's what I use it for too. It's just, I learned so much.
I think we determined yesterday, very unscientific, that you can be a homesteader if you have at least one chicken. Do you have
Well, I
a
got
chicken?
10, so I'm a
Oh, you got 10.
homesteader. Yeah, I got
So
some ducks. I got some peacocks. So,
just so I don't get in trouble, so yesterday I did a very quick live with I'll say my producers of the show, but it's very kind of, we were just kind of talking about helping me set up for this interview today. And I thought it'd be fun to do a live and go over some ideas. So I had Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener, Brianna, beautifully bemused, come on. And we were kind of talking about some ideas that I can do. And it kind of piggybacked off of the podcast episode that I did with them this week, where they were
I
giving me
watched it.
ideas for podcasts going forward for anybody that does podcasts or lives even. And so we're kind of brainstorming on some things for you. And then I noticed you kind of hopped on. I guess you saw there was a live going on. Did you kind of freak
Yeah.
out thinking when you heard that we were talking about you?
I didn't know if I was allowed in it. I was like, am I allowed to be here? So that's why I just wrote, I'm like, I'm here because I figured that's kind of what you're doing with brainstorming for today. And then I missed the beginning, and then I'm like, am I supposed to be here? And so I tried not to listen too much, because I did hear you're like, well, I kind of want to make this a little bit more organic. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to overthink any questions. So I kind of just half listened and then kind of got off, because I'm like, I didn't want to ruin it.
We came up with so many great questions. The problem is when it becomes super organized, I get flustered because I'm not an organized person by nature.
Me neither.
I
Nope.
never really make notes, although I make fun of Amanda all the time because she's always carrying around
She has a
her
notepad.
yellow notepad making notes. But I was like, you know what? Because we're doing this producer live for the podcast episode tomorrow with you, I was like, I'm going to take notes. And I did. I was taking a bunch of notes and I was like, this is all great. And I'm like, I don't know if I can work off of notes because it's too structured. I'm an anti-structure type of guy.
I'm the same way. Yeah. Well, that's why when I did write into the live, like, I talk a lot because I was like, I can make a conversation. I'm a bartender. I can make a conversation about anything go forever. Like, I'm an outgoing introvert, as I like to say, because I'm I get my energy. I'm at home. I'm by myself. I'm very outgoing. I can have a conversation with anybody about anything. So
You're an introvert?
yeah, people drain me hardcore. That's the other reason I kind of like social media in ways with communicating with all of you guys, is because I get to communicate a little bit, but it doesn't drain me as much. I lose energy when I'm around people.
That's another thing that I've picked up on within gardening. There are a lot of introverted people within the gardening community, and we're all kind of on social media, and I'm as big of an introvert as you can get, and I have a lot of people that are surprised when they hear that. We did an episode a few weeks ago where we talked about, Zach from DIY Gardener, and we talked about being introverts and having some social anxiety, and people are like, there's no way Brian is an introvert or has social
Right.
anxiety. I was like, I am the poster child for it because, like you said, I am completely drained when it comes
Yes.
to socializing in real life. After even this podcast episode, which leading up to it, I was a nervous wreck. Every single one, I'm always nervous to do.
Oh, really?
Uh,
See, I don't get social anxiety. That's why I always say I'm an outgoing introvert because, when I'm in public, I'm very outgoing. I can spark up a conversation with anyone. I'm always around. But introvert, I feel like it's how you get your energy. Do you get your energy through people, or do you get energy being by yourself? I get my energy by being by myself. I have to be by myself to fuel or fill up my cup, kind of thing. Like
that's
that's how.
exactly. So when I get done with this podcast with you, I'm on a high right now, and when we get done, I'll be on a high, and then I'll probably end up taking a nap because I'll be completely
Yeah.
drained, and I don't want to interact with anybody. And so
Yep.
that's how it goes whenever I have to go do events, or like when I work. I'm a photographer, videographer, so when I go do gigs for certain things, I have a switch that I can turn on, and I can be the most charming person out there with anybody. If I want to,
Right.
I've got the switch I can turn on. And kind of like, maybe it sounds like with you, you said you're a bartender as well. So you have to be somewhat
Yep.
social and charming because part of your job is to
My
be
job is how I
charming
make
and
money.
you're earning tips and stuff. But
Yeah.
afterwards, I am wrecked. I am exhausted,
Yep.
and I don't want to be around other people.
I spend my Sundays at home around nobody other than my husband. And even with him, it's just like I have to be quiet, and it's just like I sleep a lot on Sundays. I am by myself. I don't hang out with people on Sundays. I always tell people my days off are Monday and Tuesday because then after Sunday, I can socialize again. But I need a
That
good
is so
break
funny.
on Sundays, yeah, because it's like, yeah,
So
to
is your
refuel.
husband, is he an extrovert or an introvert?
Nope. He's definitely introvert, and he's also quiet. I'm the loud one. I'm the obnoxious loud one. He is he's pretty shy.
But you're both introverts though.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I was going to
Yeah.
say I've run into more people to where the other person is the extrovert. My wife is the super extrovert, and we've had
Oh,
issues
yeah.
early on because socially it doesn't mix. And,
Right.
for holidays, that doesn't mix because she wants to be with family. She wants to be with friends. She wants to go out and
It's
do stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to do any
yeah.
of that.
So it's funny because we do, let's say this last Thanksgiving, anytime we do like a family party, it's always at my husband's family, and he has a huge family. And it's really funny because him and I both like to hide out at the family party, but I'm the one that's always in with his family, like community, because I feel like one of us has to. And the whole time at his
Right.
family, he's in the other room with his brother, and they're like hiding out, like not talking to their aunts and uncles, and I'm the one talking, and I'm like, and then this Thanksgiving, before I left, I was like, I'm getting ready to go. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I'm peopled out. And I said it in front of all of his aunts and uncles and everybody. And they're all like looking at me like, what? And I'm like, I'm peopled out. You guys have taken all my energy. I'm leaving. Bye. And my mother-in-law gets it. She knows me.
Right.
And all the other people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you guys drained me. I'm leaving. Bye.
Oh,
Like, I'm
I
so open
feel
about it. Like,
I have become more open about it myself, but it's
yeah.
so
I
funny
let
to
people know.
hear coming from you and other people. And again, this is why I love the community that we have and finding other people that are like me, because then I don't feel so weird,
Yeah.
because I always felt like there was something wrong with me, which there probably still is. And
Yeah, we're all
everybody
messed up,
always,
I'm sure.
in real life, they always assume, and correctly, they do assume that I'm a mean person. I don't like other people. I generally don't, especially in real life. I just want to be by myself. But that also goes into where I'm drawing my energy, like you had said before. But I also understand that I can't totally just go and do that because that's just not healthy for me. So that's
Yeah.
where working with my own Instagram and my gardening and my social media accounts and my wife being who she is and being extroverted and outgoing, it helps me address a few things to where maybe I can navigate and be a little bit more in the middle of something like that, or
Yeah.
else I would be the guy that I just won't interact with anybody. And
Right.
I just don't
Yep.
think that would be healthy for me.
So I actually, it's funny you said that because the last couple months I found myself, so gardening's over for me for the most part. So I'm not on Instagram as much. Like I keep up with people's stories a little bit, but it's almost like a break. But I noticed the last couple months because gardening's over and I find myself being at home a lot and like hiding out that I kind of get down. So that's what's nice about like, I have to make sure I kind of find a happy medium because I do have to see people a little bit. Even though they drain me at times, I need to go out and like communicate. And you can only talk to dogs and chickens for so long until you're like, I need to have, keep up with the friendships in the real world a little bit too. Because I'm not on social media as much talking to you guys because I'm just not gardening as much. And so, I mean, a few people still are, but for the most part, it's winter time. So it's just not happening on the gram as much. That's what's nice when you guys do lives and stuff because you do get that community. You still get to talk a little bit and have that a little bit, but it does slow down a lot. And then here in a couple months, when spring starts, I feel like everyone's back on and we're all talking again and we're all starting seeds and it's back on. But yeah, it's kind of like you have to find that happy medium with everything because I
Well,
will
the fact that you
hibernate
have,
forever.
yeah, well, I mean, the fact that you have the self-awareness to know that and you can kind of address it and you know that, going a little bit too much in this area of being isolated, you can do some other things that kind of just brings you back a little bit more towards being with other people. And I do think when it all comes down to it, we all function a little better being somewhat social. The degree
Yeah.
can be different for everybody,
Yeah.
but
Agreed.
that's the one thing that I have grown accustomed to as I've gotten older is being just aware of what my body, my person needs. I need to have that time alone, but then I also need to work on having other people around me at times. And for that, not to have a lot of people. I don't want a lot of people. I just want a few people that I can really invest in. And that's
Well,
kind of
this
like,
podcast is perfect for you because it's such a perfect thing. You get to like communicate with people, get to know people on a different level. And that's one thing I didn't make any notes, but I did want to say one thing I liked about this or this podcast is, for me personally, like when we get new followers and stuff, I think for people like Amanda, myself now, like anybody that's on here that doesn't know us, that's a new follower, it's going to be nice to be like, hey, go watch this podcast that I did. You get to know a little bit about me because we're not introducing ourselves every day. Every time there's a new follower or a new person. And so you can jump in and, I don't really talk about myself for months and then they know nothing. So now it's kind of a cool platform to be like, hey, check out this podcast if you're a new follower. Boom, you can get to know me a little bit. That's why I thought this podcast was a smart idea because I'm like, now, the more people you get on here, and everybody can be like, oh, well, I did an episode. Here's my episode. Go, this is kind of what I'm about. And I thought that was cool. I
I
like it.
do feel, and I love that you said that. Thank you very much. That's something that is part of the formula that I want for my podcast is because I hate, let's say if we put this into a party context, when we go out to a party or we go to a function, the shallow talking of people, there's 50 people in the room and it's all just oh, hey, how you doing? How's the weather? And then I hate that kind of stuff.
Small
For me,
talk
when
is
I get
my nightmare.
together, I will find that one person and I will latch on and I will find everything out
Yeah.
about you in the 30 minutes that I'm there. And and I'm not going to care about anybody else in that room. And then once I'm done with you and I feel like there's a connection, there's a depth to your person, and I'm like, you know what? Getting to know that person was awesome. All right, I'm ready to go. And I'll look at
Yep.
my wife and I'm like, it's time to
Yeah.
go. But I can't do the shallow stuff. And that's part of my issue, I think, with social media, being on Instagram and TikTok. And I don't want to upset anybody when I say this, but I do feel there's a lot of just shallowness in the type of content that we put out. And I think that's why I'm getting kind of bored
Yeah.
with
I get
being on
that.
here for 8 or 9 years. So I thought, the podcast, at least I can identify people that I want to talk to, that I feel like I have a connection with. And then I can sit and engage with you for an hour. And I feel like I love this person that is Lulu. Because you and I, to be quite frank, we've known each other for a while on here. But I wouldn't say that we've had like in-depth discussions
No.
of like
Yeah.
talking and talking and talking. But I feel like there's something that was there that I identified with you, that I was like, I kind of connect with her. She's a cool person. I like her vibe. And so we just naturally do this. But I had no doubt that when I was like, hey, let's do the podcast together, that we weren't going to sit here and for an hour it be as comfortable as it is. Because I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of things that you and I have in common that goes beyond just the superficiality of just posting a picture of this or doing a dance TikTok or something like that. And again, nothing
Yeah.
against
And I
people
think
that are
that's
into that.
most and I think that's most people on the garden community, because we are only talking about gardening and stuff because that's what our post is. But that's why I liked this podcast. When as soon as I heard you were doing it, I was like, that's such a good idea, because there's most of these people I follow, I only know so much. I only know what tomatoes and peppers are growing. Some people share a little bit more, but for the most part, they don't. And I think it's a great idea. I think just doing different things and finding out new parts of everybody it's fun, because I don't know. I like it.
You made my day by just saying that, because I think you're tapping into something that I've had a hard time in trying to communicate to people why I'm doing the podcast and why I thought it would be fun. And I wouldn't say most, it's been about 50-50. 50% of the people that have heard about the podcast have been like, oh yeah, that sounds cool or whatever. And I think a lot of times they're just kind of being nice. But then there was a large portion of people that were like, you're going to you're doing a garden podcast, but you're not really talking about gardening. Isn't that a little too tiny too? And then you're calling it tossing salad. I'm like, yeah, it's brilliant, right? And they're like,
Do you know
I'm like,
what
and they
tossing
kind of,
salad is?
wait, that's part of the
I'm just
brilliant part.
wondering if people come across it and they think it's like a sex podcast. I thought
So
that right away. I was like,
I thought I lucked into that name when so for 6 months, I struggled with how to put this podcast together. And I've never really told the story of how I came up with the name. So this would be a good time to do that real quick. I I have a list of things. There's probably 50 names that I came up with the podcast, and everything was just kind of like, yeah, just traditional podcast, safe kind of names. And I'm like,
yeah,
eh, trying to make a play on gardening, but not make it about gardening. The composting, stuff, or growing yourself. Like kind of like when you were talking about your old Instagram name, growing with Lulu,
yeah.
or what was it? Growing with Lulu,
Growing with Lulu.
and
Yep.
growing with Lulu, and
Don't look me
I
up
think
there,
that's
guys.
brilliant.
It's not growing with Lulu anymore.
It's not her. No, her account now is Lulu's _ homestead. And I'll make sure it's on the video and everything so you guys can find her.
Yeah, don't
But
follow the Lulu
I
one.
came up with 50 of them.
Jeez.
And always in the back of my head, I was like, why can't I use tossing salad? And obviously, I knew the reasoning behind it because I knew what tossing salad was on one side of it. But then I'm like, why can't I use it in a different way? I still get a little bit of the edginess. I get it
Yeah.
also as, and here's an important thing, Lulu, is for people that have a sense of humor, I think they understand and get it and they think it's funny. And those people are like, I'll give this podcast a shot. People that don't have a sense of humor, and there's been a couple people that I've been kind of disappointed in that I would consider are friends of mine within gardening that really were wet blankets about the whole thing. And they wanted me to change the name. And I'm like, do you know who I am? I mean, do you not know that it's funny? And I would always say, when you go to a party, when you have a family function and you have the big bowl of salad and you're tossing the salad, it's because it's kind of a party atmosphere. You're tossing the big bowl because you're getting ready to serve everybody the salad. It's kind of a come together, the water cooler moment for people. Breaking bread. I was like, tossing salad. Thank you.
It cracked me up so much when I was like, the tossing. I died. I thought it was so funny.
And so the people that have issues with it.
Is he a sex podcast? Is he just done with gardening?
I did have one person that suggested that we do a kind of more risque kind of a podcast just for fun. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that right now, but I mean, yeah, it could be fun.
You don't have to now.
But for the people that have a hard time with that and they're like, oh, that's just, do you know what that means? And I always play it off. I'm like, what do you mean? It means when you're at a party and you're tossing salad.
I make a salad. I make salads.
And I play it off because I'm so fucking pissed off that I'm like, of course I know.
Right.
Of course I know what that means. But it also has other meanings. And I was like, that is why it fits with what I'm doing.
It's a perfect name.
And my intent is always to be funny. My intent is to have a good time. And if you can't see that, you can't feel it, then don't listen. I don't care.
They're not gonna, you're not gonna, you don't want those people anyways.
So that's basically how I came up with the name of the podcast. So I will end up getting in trouble because I have to use some of the ideas that we came up with on the live.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Isn't there questions and different things?
So
Amanda had a whole notepad. I know there's questions.
Amanda had a whole notepad and she sent me some notes afterwards. And my thing is, if I did all of the great ideas that they had, and again, really good ideas, I think the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have you on another time also to go over some things because this can't be a 3-hour podcast. But one of the things that I do want to do, and you did confirm that you have a lot of animals on your property, on your homestead.
I got a few now, yeah.
In 30 seconds, how many animals can you name that you have? Like, as a homesteader?
I only have a few animals right now.
Do you name your animals? Or no, is that a thing to where you're not supposed to name your animals?
No, you can.
Like which ones get names? Are they ones that you're going to eat?
So I don't eat any of my birds. My brother-in-law raises our chickens. We eat. I can't. I'm still too attached to the animals. We plan on getting cows, and we will eat them. I was vegetarian for 7 years. I'm kind of crossing. I eat meat now, but I want to respect the animal. It's going to be hard for me. I'll probably cry while I'm eating the steak. So my animals I have now just produce eggs. So I have chickens, I have ducks, and then I have peacocks just for fun. And I have a guinea to eat up ticks. Only a couple of my birds have names. Most of them that I did have names are dead. I still have Trash, my little chicken I've had for about 5 years now.
Trash the chicken?
Trash.
And how did she come up with that? How did you come up with that name?
So it was actually a funny story. I had my chickens in a coop, and a skunk got in one day. So all the chickens were out for like 2 days. I finally got rid of the skunk, and during that time, one of the chickens must have started laying outside because all the other ones would go in. About 21 days later, my niece was supposed to be out picking up garbage. At the time, I lived on my parents' property. They have 2 houses. I was living on one house. My niece was supposed to be picking up trash, and she found this baby chicken, and I'm like, oh no, that must have been when that chicken, left when that skunk came. And so there was this baby chicken, Trash, and it was just one chick, and I named it Trash because she was looking for trash. I thought it was a funny name, and it stuck, and she's the ugliest chicken you'll ever see. She's so ugly. I've posted her before. I will share you guys. She is so ugly. So the name fits, and she used to follow me everywhere. She still does. I come up, she comes right up to me, and she became my buddy because she was the only chick, so she just hung out with me all the time in the garden, followed me around. I had pictures of me literally taking her on walks. She became my friend.
That's sweet. So what are the other animals that have names? Why did you name them? And then the other thing is, why don't all of them have names? Like, you feel bad about that?
No. My rooster, I named Buddha. He's like big. I started naming a bunch of chickens in the beginning, and then I kind of stopped. I like having my nieces and nephews over to name them because kids come up with the best names for animals. And then, my dogs have, I have Luna, which I call Loon, the new puppy, Mater, as in Mater. I'm horrible at naming things. I shouldn't name anything. I'm horrible at it. And then my cat, Mary. It's just Mary.
So when you get your cows, are you going to name them or no?
I probably will. I love cows.
Will that make it hard? Will that make it hard?
Will.
Because
I'm trying to get into the mindset of, so I've been talking to farmers and people that like really connect with animals and nature like I do. And I have a really good garden friend that lives down the road, and she was saying it's kind of, because she also doesn't eat meat for a very long time as well, and kind of getting to know, like, it's a circle of life. Like, as long as you take care of them, they also take care of you, and getting that mindset in, and that helps, because it's like, so I'm getting better and better. So I started out with chickens and more animals, and now eventually when we get cows and everything, I think it's going to be easier to just be like, give them a good life, and they help provide you. We all provide each other at the end of the day. It's kind of how I'm putting my mindset on it.
Has this been what you thought it would be when you made the move to this new property, this new homestead, and all the things you guys had to do with the house? Is this what you kind of thought you were getting into?
This was my goal.
I
really want to, it's been great. My goal was to have, so I kind of like manifested, drew out, I was like, I want a house that has a bunch of windows and views, and so I can have like my animals, and I put in fruit trees last year. I'm putting in a bunch more. Somewhere I can like grow all the food, raise all my animals, and have my like sanctuary that's mine. So I knew it'd be a lot of work, but it's fun work to me. It's like when people say gardening's a lot of work, I'm like, if you enjoy it, it's not. It's fun. It's a hobby to me. So redoing this house and this my homestead or whatever, like, this all a hobby to me. It's all
you
fun.
guys have to have a background in carpentry or something. The work that you guys are doing, I'm like, how are you guys doing this?
YouTube. My husband's an electrician. My dad owned a construction business growing up, so I kind of just like, I wouldn't say I know a lot, but I've seen a lot. Like, I helped drywall our house growing up. I helped my brother's side in his house. I've helped with roofs. I've helped with everything. So I think when you kind of know the basics, it's honestly just trying it. We just started doing it. I didn't know what I was doing with these floors, and I just YouTubed it, and I was like, I'm just going to try. The best thing about having a house that's 100+ years old is that any little things you kind of mess up, it gives the house character. It's not a brand new house. It looks brand new kind of now because everything's new, but if you have like, it's a perfect house to practice on. So no, I don't really know what I'm doing. I think the difference is I just try. A lot of people just like look at it and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, we just YouTubed everything.
Well, I think it's great, and it's motivation for me because I'm into kind of DIY stuff, but I'm such a hack. But I utilize YouTube all the time and TikTok as well on how to fix things. But I'll see like you guys redoing a room, and I'm like, shit. I was like, why can't I do any of that stuff? Like, for me, it's hard. I kind of enjoy it because I have some tools, and it does help to have the right tools to do certain things.
Yeah.
But it's motivation for me to be like, you know what? I just saw Lulu. You guys like redid a room. I was like, I could probably do that here. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to really do that.
I have to say though, having like my dad he's been doing construction his whole life. He does kind of like come in and like look around and like we're like, all right, we're at this point. Are we all right? It is nice to have that somebody that knows what they're doing, because he'll just be like, yeah, you guys are doing this right, or you're doing that right, or kind of gives us ideas, and then we just go from there.
Right.
But other than that, it's just like just trying it and doing it, and you probably could fail. I mean, you should see how long it took my husband to tile our shower, because he had no idea what he was doing, and I didn't either, and a couple tiles fell off the first time, so then he had to redo it, and then it took longer, but it was at the end of the day, I look around and we've done all the work ourselves, and I think it looks great. I mean, you have to have patience. I don't have the patience. I can do a lot of like the tearing down, and that my husband is really good at detail.
Right.
So I think we're just like a good pair for this, because when it comes to detail, it would look like a mess if it was
That
just
was
me.
my next question for you was how does that affect and work with your relationship, being married and doing these projects? Because for
I
us, it's
have to say, everybody, so right before we started this project, everyone's like, it will test your marriage, da, da, da. It didn't at all. We have not gotten in one argument. We don't argue though, so maybe it's just our personalities. Maybe it's because we're both introverts and we're just like, I don't know. But no, it's been nothing but fun. I wish we videotaped more, because when we were drywalling this house, I mean, I would have been entertained just watching us. It was so funny. We were just ridiculous. We had no idea what we were doing half the time. It was so fun. I was like, we should have recorded ourselves doing most of this, because it was funny to us. We had so much fun.
I would
To
love to
us,
watch that.
yeah, I should have done it. But to us, like, these projects are fun. Life's supposed to be more like fun. I take everything lightheartedly, and like, it's enjoyable to do a project. I'm not like looking at projects like, sometimes you get frustrated, like when your well goes out. But for the most part, a lot of these projects, I'm like, we're building a home together. Like, how cool is that we can build a home together, and we just
Right.
have fun with it instead of getting like stressed out about it. And so to me, the whole thing was fun. But yeah, a lot of negative comments before it started. Like, I looked at my husband, I was like, we're not going to make it through this. Apparently we're going to fight. And no, it didn't happen at all.
Wow, that's great. I mean, it's
It was
good to
easy.
hear, especially for a
Yeah.
lot of people that are wary about working on, big home projects with their spouse, their significant other. We've done a few projects like that around our house, and it gets tense sometimes because I don't have the patience. I get frustrated very easily. I'm not a good person to work with just in general. It's very hard for people to work with me. So imagine being my wife and having to deal with me most of the time, you know?
My husband's very, very patient and very calm. I'm more like, I'll get frustrated, but I don't like get mad really. So like, if I'm just like frustrated, I'm like, well, I'll just go work and make more money and just like pay for the rest of the stuff we need to get done. Like, that's kind of, I just like put my mind on something else. But yeah, a lot of people, they get frustrated. But I also did things like, I would make a daily goal, and then a week goal, and then a monthly goal. And then that helps just move things along. Because like, if you focus on the big picture, it's so stressful. The first day we bought this house and we looked around, we're like, I mean, there's electric was wrong. We had to redo the plumbing. We had to redo everything. So we're like, what did we just do? And then once we started working, and I started just ripping out the lath and plaster, once you start actually moving, you're like, oh, we got this. Like, just keep going. What's our next step? Okay, let's tackle that. What's our next step? Instead of looking at the end goal, because then you're like, oh my gosh, there's way too much to do. And so it's just step by step. Same with gardening, same with everything.
Wow.
You don't look at like of course, eventually this homestead, I want a pond back there. I want animals. I want all the gardens. I want a greenhouse. But right now, I'm like, well, I have to start with just building some boxes. One thing at a time.
And it's been fun, kind of the content you've shared to kind of let us into what you're doing has been super interesting to kind of follow on because, like I said before, you are doing something that a lot of gardeners are like, I want to do that. At some point down the road, I want to go to where we can get away from the city, the homeowners association,
Yeah.
people that tell us what we can and can't grow, neighbors that don't like what you're doing in your yard or whatever. And I want to have chickens and I want to have animals and I want to be able to grow my own food. You're doing it. And I think if people are interested, they should follow you because you're kind of doing it from the start. And hopefully we'll get to see more content of
Yeah.
you doing that. But I know
Yes.
that's more
I will
work for you.
share. I'll definitely be sharing more. Yeah. I just so everybody knows. So I have no idea what I'm ever doing. I just do things, and I always put that out there because there's so many. I've heard like Amanda talk about this. I forget who she was talking about. I think it was her and Kate about putting content out and then like it being wrong or right. If you follow me,
Yeah.
it's probably wrong. I'm just out here doing me, and then if I mess up, I mess up. Like nothing is fact that I'm doing. So because some people come at you, like I'll share something and then they'll come at me and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just having fun. Like, don't worry about it. Like, so I try things. I share what I'm doing. I share when I mess up though.
Yeah. I think I do the same thing, and I've gotten more. I've been a little better at it within the last year or so, to where I'm trying to tell people I'm not coming out here as a gardener saying that I know what the hell I'm doing. And I just assume
Yeah.
that you all, when you see stuff that I'm doing, just assume that I don't know what I'm doing and just go do your own research. I'm just
Yeah.
letting you guys in to kind of voyeur into my garden. I'm here to kind of look into what you
Yeah.
guys are doing. I'm just here to have fun. But like you said, no matter what you post, people will be, well, that's not the way you do it. That's
Yeah.
not how we do it. That's not how my grandma did it.
I'm like, good
And
for
you're just like,
them.
okay, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to be more upfront with people and just tell them, look, on the front
Yeah.
end, I'm not here trying to tell you guys what to do. If you guys want to do it a different way, great. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that they're coming at us on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and they're coming in as experts. I don't know if they're experts.
And they're not. They never are. They're always people like hiding. Every time I've gotten like a crazy comment, I go look at their thing and I go, "Oh, you're not even a real person half the time." Like it will be like
Yeah.
a troll account, and you're like, "Oh, okay, you're boring." Like it's never and then have gotten some people that have attacked me on like eggs and stuff because eating eggs, and you're coming at the wrong person. I think I'm really funny. I'll come at you with something really sarcastic or
Sure.
really insane, and they're coming at the wrong person. So to me, it's entertaining.
I don't think you can I don't think you can get away from that no matter what content that you
No.
post, whether it's homesteading, gardening, book reading, cooking.
Yep.
No matter what you post, you're going to have somebody that'll come after you. And I think a lot of the times those people are just looking to matter.
They're
And when I say matter,
bored.
they're bored, but I think they live a life to where they don't feel like they matter. And so they feel like they can influence and affect somebody online by throwing a grenade at you and getting some kind of response. And if they're successful at getting that response, they feel good about it because they're like, I finally matter. It's such a fucked
Yeah.
up way to think about it, right?
Yeah. It's
But I think a
bad.
lot of times they're just doing it just to get a response from a person.
And sometimes they get a response from me, but it's not the response they think they're going to get. I had one lady write me about eggs one time, and she's like, would you steal eggs from an owl's nest? And I just wrote back, if I was hungry, yeah. And she just like, it's like, what are you going to say? Like, I just like reply back sometimes when people like, yeah, probably. Would you do this? Even if I wouldn't, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I would. And then they shut up. I'm like, they're entertaining to me
Well,
sometimes.
it is entertaining, but also when you've done your account for a long time and you post regular content and then you get this small stuff every single day or every single
Yeah.
week, it does add up. And
Oh, yeah.
I've had conversations with people to where normally, yeah, we all say it doesn't affect us, we just ignore it. There's only so much of that you can do, and when you get it, either every single day you get some kind of negative type comment every week, every other
Yeah.
week. It adds up at some point.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
So,
Yeah, I haven't gotten that much. And like I do, when I do, I kind of play around with it, and I think it's funny. Or I'll go on other people's. I've seen comments on other people's posts that were rude, and so I'll just like go on theirs and like I'll just like say something about what they said, or just kind of like I'm just like they can't handle it ever. They're
usually the bullies can't handle being bullied back or whatever. And
no, no.
unfortunately, the way that social media is set up, it's really hard to even defend yourself against people like this, because if you go back at them, they can report you. If you go to block them, they can still report you. If you go there, it's not
That's so
set
crazy.
up for you to defend yourself or talk back to them. You almost just have to take it.
Or ignore it. I'm really good at ignoring it too.
Yeah, if you
But
can
yeah,
ignore it, that's great.
but
Again,
like I said, I'm not getting as much hate as some of these other people. So, and also I'll just like if people tell me I'm doing something wrong, sometimes it's the best way to do it is just agree with them, and be like, yeah, you're right. I have no idea what I'm doing.
right.
Agreeing with
Oh, that's a good way.
we all know this. If you agree with the bully, they back off. So just agree with them. If they tell you suck, you just go, yeah, you're right, and then they don't know what to say after that, and it's like, okay, like you
That's a
just
great
kind
way
of
to
go in
diffuse
with
the
it.
situation. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that tip. So
yeah,
we've been on. We got. I mean, this has been an excellent episode. I do know that I have to have you back to touch on a couple other things that I think could be really big discussion points that'll make for good episodes. Last thing I'm going to ask you about, and this is something from just knowing you and following the content that you post. And I'm always curious. Like a lot of times when you're gardening, you're just doing it barefoot. Like I see you out in your compost and you got a
yeah.
pitchfork and you're
I got
barefoot using
married
the pitchfork
barefoot.
or whatever. Are you are you just super comfortable and like nothing happened? Like I'm always paranoid about things that are out there. And I'm barefoot a lot too. But like
I'm
you're out
always
there all the
barefoot.
time. I'm like pitchfork and she's barefoot doing it.
So if you see pictures of me as a kid, I posted one before. I have been barefoot since a child. My dad has always been barefoot. When I got married, me and my dad were both barefoot. He walked me
No
down,
way.
and yes, and then growing up, my dad rides Harleys, and he for a while was riding his Harley barefoot until it was messing at his foot, so he had to get some boots. But my dad has done everything barefoot. I have seen him while we had bonfires kick burning logs into the fire barefoot. I've always been barefoot. My brother's always been barefoot. And when you live in the woods, we were raised in the woods and stuff, and you're barefoot, you just have strong feet. So I hate shoes. I rototill barefoot, and every spring, if I rototill up a spot and I'm barefoot, that's when people are always yelling at me on Instagram, and they're like, you're barefoot, you're going to lose a foot. I try to wear shoes, and I feel like they're more dangerous. They get caught in things. They're clumsy. I get dirt in them. And I start off with shoes, but they always come off. Yeah. I'm always barefoot.
That is hilarious. I did not think there was a big story behind being barefoot, and there is.
Yep,
That is
always
hilarious.
barefoot. And it's funny because, like, I will post it, and people will be like, oh, you're, like, grounding with the earth. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm just barefoot, though. Like, I just don't like shoes. I hike barefoot.
All right, so have you gotten any inappropriate comments back because of showing the feet or
No,
whatever?
but I really think I should have stopped showing my feet and made a garden OnlyFans feet account.
I think that's a
I
great
messed
idea.
up. I was thinking, I'm like, I could have so much gardening money because I could have a greenhouse right now if I didn't put that content out for free.
That is freaking hilarious. You should start posting some and just blur out your feet and
I
tease
have thought
your
of that.
foot gardening OnlyFans account. See, this
I
is
think
why
that might be a 2023, yep, OnlyFans gardening account.
you've got to do that. That is hilarious. This is why I knew that we would have a good time on the podcast. I knew you would have fun with so many of these questions. Hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon. Like I
Yeah.
said, there's a couple things that I know that as soon as I get done, I get this posted. and then my producers will be back in my ear again. You left out 3/4 of the ideas that we had for the thing. I said, I know. We
I
got to
know.
the point where we're at an hour 15 minutes. This can't be 3 hours long. We can't
Yeah.
do it.
I told you I can talk. I'll talk people's ear off. It's a problem.
Well, perfect. Well, I appreciate you talking to me on the podcast. So if people want to check out Lulu at her homestead, not her farm, not her garden, not her ranch, but her homestead, it is Lulu's_homestead. There's another person that is Lulu's homestead. Don't go there. Go to Lulu's
Oh, is there?
underscore homestead. Yeah. Because I made the
Oh,
mistake
okay.
this morning when I was getting ready. I typed in Lulu's homestead. I was like, that's not her.
Oh, there's another
So
Lulu.
Lulu's_homestead. Are you just on Instagram? Do you have any other accounts besides your foot fetish OnlyFans?
I do. I will have an OnlyFans foot gardening account this spring, so stay tuned. I have a TikTok. I don't go on there. All I do is post reels from Instagram, and then I go over and put them on TikTok. I don't really do TikTok. I tried for a second when you went on there, and I get so addicted to things. And social media is one of them I have to be careful with. So I pretty much try to stay off of most stuff because next, I'm just scrolling for hours, and then so I do have a TikTok. I think that one is growing with Lulu still, because I made that back when I had my other account.
Well, the main one is your Instagram then, right? Lulu's_homestead.
Yeah, just follow me there.
And just follow her there, and then just be ready for the announcement of her foot OnlyFans account. I think you have something. I think you have a great idea there. And you have to make sure that if you do post something on Instagram in the next week, barefoot, I want you to blur it out. And in the notes, I want you to tag me that was for me, because that was my idea. But
Well,
anyways,
good. It's
Lulu,
snowing, so maybe it's a good time to go barefoot outside and show the snow one of these days.
do you go barefoot in the snow? Does your family do
Not
that
when I have to. Not really.
Okay.
But I might
That's
just
so
for the
funny.
gram.
That is so funny. All right, so we are officially done with the podcast. I'll end it right there, and I'll cut this out. All right, I hope you guys had a lot of fun with that episode as much as I did. And I'll tell you what, I don't ask for a lot. I mean, I do, but I don't. You guys have come through for me and given me reviews. I love it. Thank you guys very much for leaving reviews on whatever podcast platform that you guys listen to the Tossing Salad podcast on. It really helps the podcast get out there and get heard. If I can just ask one more thing, it's not going to cost you anything. It's going to cost you zero, maybe other than like 35 seconds of your time. We've set up a YouTube channel so that we can get the full clips of the podcast on, so you guys can see them and watch. Not only get to listen to the podcast, but you guys get to actually see all the things that you may miss during the podcast. It's great. If you guys can go to YouTube, Tossing Salad Podcast, subscribe. Again, costs you nothing. Helps the podcast channel, helps me out. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, we're working on some fun episodes coming up. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time.